Recorded Books presents Paper Roses, Texas Dreams, Book 1, by Amanda Cabot. Narrated by Barbara Mcculloh. Chapter 1. March, 1856. It'll be all right. Sarah Dobbs wrapped her arms around the child, wishing with all her heart that she could believe the words she'd uttered so often. The truth was, it didn't matter what she believed. All that mattered was keeping Thea safe. And so Sarah knelt on the hard-packed dirt of San Antonio's main street to wipe the tears from her sister's cheeks. The child was hot, tired, and excited by the unusual sights, a combination that turned normally sweet-tempered Thea querulous. "Let me see, sweetie." Sarah reached for her sister's hands, giving each of the tiny palms a kiss. Thank goodness this time Thea had not hurt herself. When she'd run and tumbled, trying to chase a burro, all she'd done was torn her hem again. The dress could be repaired far more easily than the skinned hands and knees that had been almost daily occurrences since they'd left the train. "It'll be all right," Sarah repeated, rising as gracefully as she could. "It will be all right," she told herself, "when Austin arrives." The journey, that had been more difficult than she had dreamt possible, was almost over. Once she and Thea reached Ladraville and the Bar C, the past would truly end. The old Sarah Dobbs would be gone forever. "Walk?" Thea gave Sarah a look only a curmudgeon could refuse. Sarah was not a curmudgeon. She was a woman whose right leg was protesting the exercise, and whose common sense was shouting that she and Thea should not remain in the hot Texas sun. She was also a woman who knew how desperately Thea needed to expend some of her seemingly endless supply of energy. "A short walk." Sarah smiled as a grin crossed the child's face. It took so little to please Thea. How could anyone have... Deliberately, Sarah bit the inside of her cheek. That's all past, she reminded herself. She wouldn't think about the past. Instead, she walked slowly and deliberately, trying to minimize her limp, as she looked for the man who held the key to her future. Where was he? Where was Austin Canfield? Sarah kept a tight grip on Thea's hand as they made their way down the street. Her tumble forgotten, Thea giggled at the sight of oxen with almost unbelievably long horns pulling two-wheeled carts. There was no denying the differences between this city and Philadelphia. They were as real as the warmth that felt more like midsummer than the last days of winter, as real as the smells of dust and dung and dried leaves. But the greatest difference was sensed, rather than seen or heard. There was a contagious vitality about this frontier town. Sarah saw it in the way men swaggered rather than strolled. She heard it in the shouted greetings. Whether they spoke Spanish or English, enthusiasm was evident in every word. Texas was young and brash and exciting. It was everything she sought. Or would be, if Austin were here. But he wasn't. There was no doubt about that. Just as there had been no doubt the previous dozen times she had looked for him. Though the center of San Antonio bustled with life, there was no one who fit his description. "I'm 4 inches over 6 feet," he had written, "with sandy hair and blue eyes, and when I see you, I'll be wearing a grin as big as the state of Texas." Sarah had smiled when she had read his words. Texans, she had heard, were prone to exaggeration. She wasn't smiling now. The last of their traveling companions had departed half an hour ago, leaving Sarah and Thea alone, more than 1,000 miles and a lifetime away from home. She shook her head slowly, negating her last thought. Philadelphia wasn't home. Not anymore. "Papa!"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?